entire family's been killed. If we were cousins, it would have been a miracle.
No, I'm Jerry's cousin.
So I think this is live, right? You can hear it?
Yes.
Is it basically loud enough? Basically everybody's okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Do you all suppose you're gonna perch or stand or any feelings about that? Okay. Well, if necessary, we'll raise this when the time comes. It's pretty easy to do that. Let me get this loose. All right. Okay. Well, we're gonna get Stephen up here first. You're here to hear Stephen Vincent, Jerry Martien, and Hilton Obenzinger tonight. So we're very pleased with that notion. And there are a whole variety of books here. So let's, this is just in the way.
I'm not using it as a prop.
Oh yeah, well there's that. I don't know. I think you're better off using the side there.
I don't want to knock over the other water.
Not if you don't have to. All right.
Okay.
Good. Good. Do you have anything you want to hold in your hands to read from?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
there. Look
yes.
at all those place
Tag.
markers.
I'm well tagged.
Okay. We'll take these down.
Do you know the
Here, we'll do a
Did you
little.
This is from UCLA. This.
What's that?
Okay.
UCLA.
And this is what I'm going to read from.
You want one? You
Yeah,
want to
I wanna
stand in
face
front of
it,
you
maybe.
like this? Okay, let's do it that way.
Maybe.
How's that?
We'll see.
No, yes, we will. Okay. Okay, folks, I'm gonna adjust one light so you're not quite so blinded. But we are ready to go. Let me do that.
I
Get
think the
one
mic
switch
might
going
be
here. We may
too far.
do some more
Yeah.
adjustments, but this one first.
You want me to start, Jarek?
Wait just a second. I want
Okay.
to do
Betty.
that, and then I want to get to the other end of the room so I can squelch any horrible feedback or something. All right, you all comfortable?
I
Great.
think the mic might need to be closer.
No, I don't think it does.
No? Okay.
No, it'll be fine if that does. Thank you though. Okay, you're streaming to the world and you got a live audience. So Stephen Vincent, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, everybody. Happy to see you. And I'm happy to be here with my two old friends, Jerry Martien. Well, I actually went to the University of California in Riverside in the 1950s. We're that old. This is a geriatric moment, but and then Hilton, who's a septuagenarian, not an octogenarian, but in any case, we're all contributing. I'm contributing to lowering this. For some reason, you're not supposed to go down.
There you go. It went down.
I don't want it to go down. I want Eric,
Yes, just a second.
is there a way to tighten this, baby?
Let me see what we can do. What would you like?
This is sliding up and down. Is there a way to tighten
I
it?
see it moving right now.
The mic is good.
It was going down. It's where I want it right now. But it was going. If I push on it,
Well, yeah, okay. Well,
There's no way to-
different stand, but
there's no way to tighten
well,
that.
maybe
No.
a
Okay.
different stand at that
All right,
point.
right. Okay.
Hold on just a moment. Try this one. Maybe it's a little stiffer. So hold your book.
Thank you, sir.
Hold this. Hold this. Got a good height.
Yeah, but now I need it.
Tilted more.
Yes.
Okay. Alright. I'm gonna do this
Just
like
like this.
this.
Or it's just tightening up.
I think we'll give Bonnie the credit for moving this a little closer.
Okay.
Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. Okay. So, Anyway, Jerry and Hilton and I go back for different reasons. When I had Mama's Press, I published Hilton's book, this Passover or the next, I Will Not Be in Jerusalem.
Never.
I will never be in Jerusalem. He's held to that too, I think.
No, I lied.
You lied.
I've been there
Okay.
several times.
And Jerry, for those of us old enough to have gone to Eureka and Arcata, he used to be one of the principals at Northtown Books, which sadly burnt down when Arcata had that enormous fire. And but apparently Jerry says they've secured enough money, etc., to rebuild it and make it happen again. But Northtown Books was one of the great treasures in Humboldt County, and I'm glad it's coming back. Anyway, Jerry's been involved in a lot of bioregional, whatever. Do people still say bioregional?
Only if they can pronounce it.
Pardon me? Only if they're what?
We could call it place
Okay, whatever works.
for short.
Anyway, I have this new book out called Street Work, with this great cover with the. If you walk around, I walk around a lot, and you see how the city before any of these people dig up the street to fix the pipes and all the other stuff, they have ways of identifying. I can't translate what's here, but I kind of love the marks, and they seem to be multi-directional, etc., etc. Anyway, the subtext or subtitle of this book is called Texts and Photographs. Walking, these are the sections: walking, personal lyric, dance, romance, language, tar, trees, cosmos, death. I think I covered the bases, but anyway, I tried. And so, and anyway, basically, my strategy over the years has been to look closely at the street, what surrounds the sidewalks, and there's a kind of alchemy that occurs when I look at things that become poems or prose pieces or thoughts. I just use them as the street as a kind of source of translation. So I can read the brief preface about that, I think. I won't read the preface. I'll just start out right, but it starts with the cover photograph. One continuous day where the country's spilled blood spread simultaneously in several unmistakable directions. What way peace for any or all of us? Something must start soon. If not, lies more hell. I'll briefly show you the picture. The idea of this book is to please buy it, and then you can get a total relationship between the
Oh, you gotta lift it.
photograph and the.
You gotta
And
show it better. Pick
show
it
it.
up and show it.
Hey, boss. Thank you. I can
All
show
the way,
better.
all the way. Which
I don't know
one?
if you can see it, but this, if you know that, what's that? What was that bar called? It was kind of a famous lesbian bar at the corner of Lexington and 19th Street. What's it called? The Lexington? Yes. Okay. Anyway, it has no ownership and so forth. But one night I walked out. There's this white circle and these black pieces of tape. I don't know how that happened. I don't know, but no one will come forward to say what happened, whether it was a travesty of incidents, for example, in the country's undeclared civil war. Beyond and within the white circle, there were suspicious knocks on the door, on anyone's doors. There were no suspicious knocks on anyone's doors. Ocean and flush rivers rose and receded. We live fully contained beside and under extended triangular boxes of tabular ignorance, alternatively protected, then not, aside and inside dark phrases. The population waits for visits from the pretend or not victors. I don't want to skip any. Things remain subtle today. The delicate will not rule, nor should they. An unemployed judge is not a bad or a good thing. I lost it at the movies when nothing was moving. There's nothing sanguine about options. Take one trail or two. Look back often enough to keep it interesting. That was this right here. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm sorry, we don't have projections, but anyway. In old age, the tall will lean over to join and follow the short. Many will bend and complain. Some will break. Occasionally, as one continues, one might see what appears to be a bridge to faith. Stay there, I suggest. No, this is the guy swinging the golf club. Okay. No matter the greatest of golf swings, most are not. No matter how great or precise, long or short, driven arc is not going into the improbable, elusive hole-in-one. The animal greed for such an outcome is constantly the unwanted joke of the day. No matter what we swing, ambition and then loss will define one's enduring and lasting composure. A cloud has no memory, only an exit. The scatterbrained are there but for a brief moment. We challenge everything but believe nothing. A bullet goes through a cloud without thinking. We put milk in the saucer and call in the cats. Parsimony is misdirected love. Shame the pastor and spoil the peach. John Cage will never write the last symphony. We wrestle the tambourine from his shoulder. This is just I like to photograph the lines that are in the crosswalks, like a little insignia of sorts, you know. And then, songs may rise, the winds will sweep, hands will make their marks. Between the lines, some will have suffered, some will weep. The heart remains a perpetual quadrant. Structure is not stricture. We dance between line, curve, and square. Tremble. This one is like a special one, if we can see that. It's like a swimmer in a single arc and dive. Measure not what you know, but where and when God's lower and permit one to arrive. This was this line to the, you can see that. Okay. The sentence, the scar, this is one from the section called language. The sentence, the scar, the one that says goodbye, absolutely no return, cut off to the depths. We've had it, gone, definitely gone. Closure is not a theory, Sentiment is no longer the issue, cut off at the core, not even a ruin, nothing to further enjoy, not even humor. May breath be your succor. The poem Slipknot is not a knot. What's tied up is not a knot. What is tied up is not a knot. Immeasurable are the means then not. Grip and climb the dark ladder, ring by ring, as high as you can. Most come back, sometimes not. How was this? Again, photographing the tar on the streets, so it's like and interpreting their shapes. Nothing more exquisite than the fallen nosedive of the still-standing boomerang. No matter how grave the turbulence, an unforeseen poise and confidence in the pose, maybe against all evidence, what is will rise to fly again. Let's just read a few more of these. I like the ficus trees in San Francisco. And they often take interesting shapes. I don't know. There are mysteries to open inside everything. Use your eye, fingers, and extended tongue. Throw down a little language on the side. It might be romance and it might be not. It might be beautiful or not. True love is never not a pain. When it comes to trees, admire the trunk and sing loud and clear among the branches, spring and fallen leaves. I'll read these two more. Sometimes it's just chalk marks or whatever, I don't know, paint marks, random paint marks, but anyway, I don't know if you can see those. They're dark. The first circular cosmic allure, no matter how simple or complex, refuses to break into shambles. I've seen an unbearable light in the circle, flickering endlessly. Every day in the news, these difficult to decipher messages, the discovery of a new black hole, somewhere in outer space, which some cosmic matter may already be sucked in or spit out. All politics are local as with the cosmos, while looking closely and intimately at the dark spaces in this tree trunk on Cumberland Street this morning. Okay, I'll read just one more, just a second here. These ones, every once in a while, like the gold paint will splatter onto the street. And so, let there be light. Let it be golden. Let it make letters gold, pure. Let it make letters gold, pure, and falling down, way down, inward and outward, gathered here in the dark. Sandy, get away. My computer skills keep improving. Where did you go? Okay. Recently I had, if I can confess, a small stroke. My left arm began to wobble and what have you. And we decided it was a stroke and we went to the hospital. They came and took me to the hospital. And actually, I'd never been to the trauma unit, the infamous trauma unit at San Francisco General, which is a very well-run place. I found, and I liked it, actually. I wasn't in any pain. I wasn't in any pain, and so I'd have these conversations with the nurses and doctors, and yeah, you'll have a good recovery, we can tell. Things like that. Yeah, thank you. So we, and so this progressed from general to Kaiser, and then Kaiser subcontracts your care to, if you have a stroke, to and in this case it was the Santa Clara Medical Center, which was a wonderful place. It wasn't really controlled by the Filipino mafia, but it had its share of wonderful Filipino nurses as well as from other parts of the world. And I was very committed to healing. It just was a great kind of affectionate place. And since they only take people they think are recoverable, and I guess I was among the recoverable. So, it's an interesting world. I hadn't really ever been in a hospital for very long. But I want to tell us one story. Hilton was telling earlier about all during the Vietnam War, we had various ways of avoiding the draft. And mine was to be in the Peace Corps. And I was in Nigeria for 2 kind of extraordinary years, and which also became another war, the one that is identified with Biafra. And anyway, and indeed, there's a diaspora of Igbos, which were in the part of the country I was in, as well as many other Africans to the United States. God knows what kind of hell they're going through now, because Trump wants to charge them $250,000, some enormous amount of money to cross the border. And it's just totally outrageous. And but anyway, one night they always come around and wake you up at inconvenient times when you finally have some sleep. But this one night, I was just a second. I got woken up, and I could barely see this black face of this woman looking at me and asking to take my blood pressure. And out of it came this story. In bed in hospital at about 3 a.m, a dark face hovers at an angle from my own. I'm here to check your vitals. She speaks with a familiar accent. Where are you from? Africa. Which country? Nigeria. Which city is near? Lagos, Onitsha, Port Harcourt? Benin. Which language? I am Igbo speaking. So am I. Anamanaswibo Nwantenti. You can speak Igbo a little bit? She is laughing. If not in shock, just astonished. How can she be hearing an 85-year-old white guy recovering from a stroke speaking her language out of the darkness at 3 a.m, some 10,000 miles from her home? I am once in Nsukka teaching at the university. That explains it. Your vital signs are good. So is my sense of humor. Kachifo. Kachifo no. Good night. Good night. Thank you. Yes. So I'd love it if you could, I know it's expensive, $35, but if you can push it, it's got 100 photos and it costs a small fortune to produce. So I appreciate your alleviating my, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. And again, I think I already introduced Jerry, but in case you forgot, there's some people in this.
She's a doctor? She might have turned out to be. She was one of the smartest. Oh, really? I knew it Rosario Maramba. Okay. She was a doctor. Okay. But she
Thank you, Jerry.
Oh, she didn't.
Give him a round of applause, please.
All those decades ago, introduction to literature, Riverside.
I'll work on that mic for you a little bit.
I'll sit down.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's very optimal place right now. I found the missing copy.
Yeah, I saw it. Why didn't you tell me? There it is.
That can be all right. If it's there.
As long as it picks it up. Yeah, good. Thank you. I thought I was at the end of a book tour which has been going on for slightly over a year, and beginning another one, but they overlap. Life is just too messy for that kind of idea. And the book I've been talking about is about a journey taken in 1932 by the marine biologist Ed Ricketts, from beginning in Monterey and going up to Sitka, Alaska. And you have to be careful where you place the action of your books, because you end up going there. It's been very educational, but expensive and rather exhausting. But I thought it would be done, and I would begin another one. But I know that in the publicity, it was most of the publicity, which was excellent. Thank you, Eric. Was
Miss McGee Vincent.
Really?
was about this book. And I thought, well, I'm not done with it. So this is officially the end of this book's tour. And for various reasons, four people, Ed Ricketts, who at that time was supporting himself and his family by selling marine specimens, captured, he didn't need a license to gather stuff out of Monterey Bay at the time, and euthanizing them and lovingly cutting them apart and putting them on slides and selling them for classroom use. It was a very opportune time to leave town. He was having an affair with a young Russian woman, one of three sisters, who was living in Pacific Grove, and his wife was leaving him, and he now had two households to support. Another passenger on the boat was the mythologist Joseph Campbell, who was on the West Coast because it was 1932. Everything had stopped. Nobody was hiring teachers. He came out looking for a job, ended up in Pacific Grove, and fell in with a lot of bohemian writers and artists, and fell in love with John Steinbeck's wife, and they decided that they had best not pursue it. John had brandished a pistol and gone off to the high Sierras, and just being not really, I don't think he was ever really emotional, but he acted the part, and it would have been the end of their marriage, and they thought, oh, this would be a good time for Joseph Campbell to leave town. So those two were on a boat, the Grampus, which is the species name for like porpoise and killer whales. And they were on their way to Alaska to homestead so they could live off the grid and build a home and raise a family in the wilderness. This story grasped me for a couple of reasons, because this people's trajectory seemed very much like my own generation. That the culture was, and Western civilization was falling apart again, and they needed another way to live. Another description of life, as the one they had was not working. It was important to science because Ricketts was exploring. He was collecting specimens, and had noticed that the tide pool could not be described by the conventional zoological categories, but seemed to be a happening, which he called sometimes ecology, which was just beginning to be a word. Social ecology sometimes, or aggregate behavior. And he was beginning with a friend he had met in the tide pools who came by to ask what he was doing, and Jack Calvin became involved in the project, and they started making little guidebooks, and it eventually became Between Pacific Tides. And part of their work on the voyage was to rewrite that manuscript for Stanford University Press, because they kept saying that this doesn't describe the tide pool in any way that marine science was able to accept at the time. Ricketts wrote one of the things so the voyage was partly a writing workshop for the entire summer of 1932, while they collected 15,000 specimens of tiny little creatures called Gonionomus, which was going to pay the gas bill to get to Sitka and back. So that was the journey, and it was the beginning of ecology as a new description of the world. And it was larger than what we now mean by ecology. As Ricketts could not very well stay on topic. He wanted to talk about everything at once, all the time, and he was brilliant. But he dropped out of college before the categories could get a good grip on him, and it really wrecked his life. But it made him a brilliant opener of new ways of thinking, and it struck me that this is a story that we need to know about. And it's taken me all over the goddamn place. And here I am, and this is really the end of this book tour, okay? Buy this book, okay? So I'm starting another book. I'm starting to tour with another book. It's just off the press. Some of it is off the press. About a fourth of it is off the press. The rest of it is back in the press because they cut it wrong. And the page numbers are not quite on the page, but we have enough to provide the demand so far. It's bodies of water. It begins like this book. It begins at Humboldt Bay. I'm walking my dog. That's sort of a dog walk frames the story. Comes in and out, weaves in and out of the narrative. There's to some good dog poems. At the beginning, no kidding. You know. it'll sound like Lassie. You know. Yeah, right, Jerry. Well, let me just jump in before I ruin the narrative any farther. Weather report. It was going to rain, but the forecast changed. Scattered light with clouds of glory. An 8-foot tide, the bay swollen full, the river bank to bank, this narrow spit between. A man and a dog, a faint trail, the book of Revelations open on the sand. A marsh wren flies ahead, this way to the rapture. Dunes and beach grass, and on a driftwood log, 4 ravens hold the world together. Southerly breeze, gusts to 50 knots. He throws a stick out into the everlasting sky. The dog brings it back. So this is my experience of walking on this narrow spit of land between Elk River and Humboldt Bay, out and back. As a dog's life, it's the highest tide of the year, nearly the shortest day. On one side the river, almost over its bank, on the other the bay, breakers coming across the bar, then the ocean's immensity, periods of rain with clearing. Maggie and I love this little piece of earth, its grasses and flowers, egrets and hawks, black-tailed jackrabbits. In our remaining years, maybe as few as a dog's life, it could be flooded, this world we know be drowned. Our kind has always been slow to respond to change. I'm still trying to sort out what happened when I was a child in 1940s Southern California. Things my father never talked about. His own childhood in Eastern Europe. What became of those who remained? Who sheltered and saved them? Who murdered or betrayed them? What made the difference? Between the people who used this day to rekindle the fire, pass around a flickering light, and those who see us each against another, alone against the dark. Without understanding, everything happens again. Those who most betray our nature are granted wealth and power. The ones who share the light are numbered and named, the ground washing away beneath us. Waves will be coming over the dunes now. The dog and I turn back. We meet 2 young women, deep in conversation, walking to the land's end. At the bridge, a man and woman and an old dog heading out to the wild surf with a bucket and a little fishing pole. You have to wonder how our species survives. I watch the tides, see how the river meets the bay, try to figure out what's left, what's gone, how it's going to change. The dog and I will walk out here again tomorrow, maybe the day after that. We'll meet the guy who lives in the willows and talks to people we don't hear, or the birders in their funny hats, counting the winter flock, other isolates who walk their dogs out here, till this place is only memory, till memory is gone. What's in a name? Six decades after the invasion, an anthropologist came asking what this place had been called. Wrote down what he heard, both the village and its river, Ixori, the tallow works, the pound. Those were its names when we first came here 50 years ago. where they cooked dead livestock and stray dogs into animal fat to make soap and beauty products. To render, it's called, as in surrender, when you give up everything. They also sold bone meal, blood meal. We bought a big burlap sack of each because the Rodale book said it would be good for our garden. Phosphorus, nitrogen, cheap. Now the city of Eureka uses the name for its waterfront upgrade. Signs say Hickory Trail. From Pound Road, bicyclists and strollers and dog walkers cross the remnant salt marsh, follow Elk River to where it empties into the bay, where the bay comes up the river. Beech pine, myrtle, a few old spruce, Eureka's sewage treatment plant behind the willows, all of it taken without asking, rendered. Graffiti on broken concrete, the old dog pound walls where people moved to after being evicted from behind the mall. The paved trail also works for cop cars. The dog and I walk the other way, follow a dirt path along the railroad tracks. Highway traffic and sirens drift away in the offshore breeze. A brackish fog moves up the river. Seaweed floats in on the tide. Along the bank, Maggie sniffs the footprints of other dogs, tracks of mouse and plover, and 100 little creatures whose world this is. There's a lot we don't know about the Wiyot. The river has moved. The village was on a sand spit said to have washed away. Most of the people were gone when the anthropologists came to collect artifacts and names. The stench of the tallow mixed with the decay of the tide, cordgrass, pickleweed, silt and slash of upstream logging, mingled with the off-gassing sewage plant, blended with ocean fog, sulfur dioxide belching from 2 pulp mills across the bay. All of it came together here. The mayor of Eureka said he'd never smelled it. Locals called it Stinky Beach. We loaded the bags into the van, brought them home, spread the contents on the garden. Our dog rolled around in it for days. Of course, it was real blood, real bones. Bufflehead, loon, coot, and cormorant, bay and river, the future rushes in over the dredged-out bar. History oozes from the relocated river mouth. Sand pours in from the ocean. Sediment from hills that were mud only a geological moment ago. This peninsula, not even here. The dog sniffs it all. Old plank and piling, flotsam spindrift and mounds of rotting eelgrass, a dead gull, a sandwich wrapper. 3 ravens have already claimed it. She approaches them slowly, nose to the ground. At the last moment, 2 of them hop away. The third flies to a bare dune, calls with a voice between laughter and sorrow, "Give it back, give it back." One more. That spit of land is also a refuge for homeless people who try to tough it out for as long as they can. They come and go. Belongings. At the end of the land, there's a spring. A homeless guy lived there, beside a pond between Elk River and Humboldt Bay. He had a cat. 10,000 years ago, the ice still melting, the ocean miles away, legend says the spring was already here. Then in a great earthquake, it sank and was covered by the bay. Now it comes up through this narrow spit of ocean sand and the mud of a century and a half of logging. It's no Walden Pond, a stone's throw wide fringed by cattail, willow, myrtle. Frogs, raccoons, summer blackbirds also shelter here. Jimmy toughed it out for a couple of years, cut back willows with an axe, shoveled sand against the December tides. In a battered aluminum boat, he ferried Eureka's cast-off treasure to his little outpost, an American flag flying from the big black pipe that vents the city's sewage outfall into the bay. Home is the place we keep our belongings. He lived in a Kmart tent on this sinking sand beside a freshwater pond floating on a rising sea. Folks tried to help him, showed him woodcraft, how to smoke the perch he caught. Someone even tried to rescue his cat, meowing in the willows. Messages in chalk began appearing on the paved waterfront trail. Do not take cat. Cat, not homeless. When the cat disappeared again and didn't come back, he got 2 pit bulls that mauled some dog walkers and had to be put down. This brought him to the attention of the authorities. Then he was gone, taken care of. Car batteries, tons of trash remained, the flag in the southerly breeze. Eventually, people cleaned it up, rangers, beach walkers, a new homeless guy named Tex. Maybe this redeemed a little our failure to do for the man what the man tried to do for a cat. It will take time for the pond to recover. It may go under, or it might keep rising from the bay. Home is belongings, to hope, to one another, to improbable places. At the end of the land, there is this spring. Couple more. Ikshari. Trying to organize Elk River, which turns out to be actually just a suburb of Eureka, and we were trying to get people to imagine they belonged to a watershed. It was not very successful. And we thought, well, let's publish a map so they can see where they live. That might help. But then we, trying to be inclusive, we took it to the Wiyot and said, well, would you like us to add some Wiyot names? And it's still, it never came back. The project sort of died there. I mean, partly because I finally came to realize that they don't need a map. Their name was the name of this village, and they didn't name the valley Elk River Valley. They didn't, they had a very different idea of place that we are slowly, very slowly learning. Days of fog, then clearing, northerly breeze, incoming tide. From the old railroad bridge, we follow the river downstream, cross over through the dunes to the bay. Winter tides have swept across this narrow spit of sand again. The dog sniffs at a clump of beach grass, a piece of torn clothing. A guy named Tex lived out here a couple of years, fished and foraged, sold weed to tourists, picked up trash. From driftwood, he started making beautiful things. His little camp on the highest dune, now washed away. None of this landscape has been here long. Colonists arrived by boat in 1851, disembarked near a Wiyot village across the bay, murdered 3 people, burned several houses, laid out lots for sale. Humboldt City. When they dredged the bay's mouth for bigger lumber barges, the ocean tides rushed in. Humboldt City washed away. The colonist map shows a sand spit here, but much smaller. Every summer they would build a dam upriver, pile up logs behind it, and when the rains filled the pond, they'd blow up the dam. The flood carried everything before it. When an anthropologist came asking for names in 1918, the spit was gone. There were houses on it, he was told. What Maggie and I are walking on is the miles of sediment washed downstream. Grains of red sand, fragments of chert, comes from the rocky point where Humboldt City was. When the dog was young, we'd walk out to the end where the river empties into the bay. Now we stop at the black pipe that vents Eureka's sewage, cross back through the dunes to the river. Strawberry, buckwheat, morning glory, an abandoned campsite, willow and myrtle that were cut back, a spring once fresh that Maggie won't drink from, tracks and scents of creatures whose world this still is. The rising sea is coming for it all. Spent plutonium stored by the water's edge, a sewer plant whose effluent the surfers ride, the abandoned mills, wood preservatives, the mall that was a wetland and will be again. Walking back to the parking lot, we stopped to watch big yellow belly dumps moving old sediment, opening channels that were filled to make pasture. Somewhere out there, relics of Hekchikshari. From a pickup with its door open, an anthropologist watches the work. We move along, pass a woman wearing a hard hat talking to some restorationists, guys who might have once stood in the path of big yellow machines. There is no restoring what is gone. The colonists have failed as caretakers on a scale even greater than we imagined. It will live as the legacy of our species, perhaps beyond. The workers are doing what the land calls us all to do, what the Wiat have ceremony and a name for, fixing the earth. Afloat on the flood, we tell ourselves stories. Remember a world we came from. Imagine the world we're on our way to. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now we have Hilton.
Without further ceremony, Hilton Obenzinger.
Okay.
Do you need help getting in the picture?
I need help every minute of the
There
day.
you go.
Come on, Aaron.
You did it.
I did it. I can walk.
Sure you can. That mic is probably fine right where it is.
Hello? Yeah,
Look, hardly anybody's drunk their
I'll drink it. I'll drink it.
Yeah,
I'll drink it all.
a little bit.
Uh,
It's a communal cup.
Yeah, I came in earlier, and sometimes I feel like it's the finger of God that says, and I immediately found being mortal, which you'll see is very pertinent. Passover, it's the season of Passover, whether it's passed over or not. But don't worry, I'm not going to read all this. I was going to read excerpts from the book I'm writing now, but just after I printed out my taxes, my printer broke. So I I got the taxes though. I put tags in rather than have one little manuscript. But I wanted to read, this is Treif Pesach, which means unkosher Passover or not kosher for Passover, okay? It was a mistake calling it that because no one knows what that means. And I thought it was kind of like certain Yiddish words or whatever. Everyone knows what a schmuck is, you know? But, right, you know, or chutzpah. But, so in all the publicity I had to have in brackets, unkosher Passover. Really idiotic thing to do. I mean, you know, for the title for the poem, it's fine, but I've done over the years different, you know, poems taking off on the Passover Seder, the Haggadah. So this is one of them that was in 2015. This year I am observing a Treif Pesach. Help me sweep the hometz back into the house, the leavened bread, for we need to get dirty. Help me replace the wine with whiskey, lots of it, so we can forget the horror. Once we were slaves, and now we are slaves again. Instead of matzah symbolizing the haste in which we fled slavery, stack up slices of white bread, any kind of leavened bread, because now the Pharaoh of Israel holds our people in thrall. Chop up the apples and nuts to represent all the Palestinian houses blown up. Eat the bitter herbs to remember how the beauty of our culture has been infused with hate. Slap down a pork chop rib to remember how all of the hopes and dreams of freedom have turned ugly, have turned to blood, have become a vile joke. Eat the slimy kale to recall all the olive trees torn out of the ground. Dip the leafy slime into the salt water to cry over how young kids are lording over old men and pregnant women at checkpoints. Eat the horseradish to recall the bitterness of lies in our name. Shove spoonfuls of horseradish down each other's throats so we can never forget what we have done. Put the egg in the center to recall that once we were a people rich with variety and joy, and now we are a cartoon of ourselves. But even then, spring will come, maybe, if the warming earth allows. Why is this night different from all other nights? It's not. It's the same old story of using our own pain to cause the pain of others. The foolish child is the only wise one around. He says, I want to get out of here. I'd rather live in Berlin or LA than stomp on other people and call that democracy. The wise child is a fool, asking why he can't get lower rent and doesn't notice the bloated settlements. Let the girls sing the new Dayenu. Enough. One of the songs in the Seder is Dayenu. You know, God parted the river, the Red Sea, and that would be enough. You know, he freed us from, that would be enough. That's the gist of the song. So this is a different version. Let the girls sing the new Dayenu. Enough. We build walls to choke another people. Enough already. We in America and Europe are told to come and be ruled by Pharaoh Bibi. Enough already. Bombs and more bombs will make us safe. Enough already. Once we were slaves and now we are slaves again. Enough already. Beat up the stranger in our midst. Enough already. And American Jews look on and say nothing, as they have said nothing for decades. Enough already. Let us feast on our bitterness and loss. Let us gulp down the whiskey so we can forget. Next year, leave Jerusalem alone. Okay. Yeah, got to be a party pooper at the Seder. Oh, by the way, now I've been writing a book. It's almost completed, called Old Fool, and I started writing it because I put up something on Facebook, and my editor, publisher, of my last book, Witness, which is here somewhere, said, why don't you write a book about that? So this is what I wrote. Soon my birthday. So what kind of old man do I want to be? Just like a kid entering puberty, I can look at models to measure myself against. In old age, I also have models. I can be a cantankerous old geezer. How about a dirty old man? Those K-pop videos with all those cute kids, I'd love to squeeze them all. How about wise old sage? Maybe a solid, uncomplaining anchor to a whole family. A respected patriarch. A fabulous old queen. A dried fig. Many more possibilities. Women, of course, have a whole different set. Beloved matriarch, wicked witch, dragon lady, invisible. What are your models? For me, there's the likely one, old fool. Why not? I've been a young fool, so I might as well drag that identity with me to the grave. So the book is a number of different things, contemplating and preparing for old age and death. And I'll read a little section of that. In the meanwhile, the Gaza war begins. And I begin to kind of review my own, it's partly memoirs of an anti-Zionist Jew, of how I became public with my rejection of Israel and Zionism in 1972. And various events from that, but also participating in revolutionary politics, radical politics, and cultural politics, changing the narrative of what people think of as America, including things like I worked with Barbara Dane, who would be sitting here and singing jazz, with Paradon Records, producing records from liberation movements around the world as one story, and ultimate, and the things like the Jewish Alliance Against Zionism, 1978 to 1982, one of the first anti-Zionist Jewish groups around here in the Bay Area, worked on the Chinese railroad workers in North America project, finding out who the people were who built the railroad, the Transcontinental Railroad, out of the Stanford initiated project, and producing several books, films, all kinds of stuff, to try and find out who those people were and what happened to them and beyond. And it was a transnational project with the U.S., Canada, Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, and a wonderful exchange at the time. And something that I don't think can be done now because of the situation with the schmuck. So we were able to research, and they wrote, nothing survives of what they wrote. People thought they were illiterate. We discovered through various research that actually quite a few of them were literate. They were not poor farmers only. They were teachers, blacksmiths, carpenters, all kinds of people who came to California to work on the railroad. And then afterwards, beyond, in Oregon, Nevada, all the way. I grew up in Laurelton, Long Island. The Long Island Railroad was across the street. And I did not realize until, recently, that Chinese had rebuilt that railroad. It was built on sand. It was known as a death trap. And they brought in skilled Chinese workers in the 1870s to rebuild it so it would be on solid ground. And then I live now in Palo Alto with the railroad in my backyard. I don't seem to escape the railroad, but I'm used to it. It's okay. And in 1863, Chinese were brought in to build the railroad from San Francisco to San Jose. So I've been, kind of haunted without realizing it by these Chinese railroad workers. Well, this was a triumphant project leading up to the 2019 150th anniversary of the Golden Spike. 20,000 people. In 1969, the 100th anniversary, this is like a measure of our movements. They ignored the Chinese and said only Americans could dig tunnels through the Sierra, et cetera. And literally only Americans, and there were only Chinese who were not allowed to become Americans, citizens. So it was really quite interesting. And on a project like this, that when Xi Jinping came to America to visit Barack Obama, remember him? And they both spoke about the Chinese railroad workers, clearly using material that we had developed going up the chain of command on both sides of the Pacific. So that was really kind of most satisfying. But and then the horrors of what's currently going on. So, any case, let me read a few excerpts. So, grave hunting. The cemetery in Palo Alto is, of course, far too expensive, as is all real estate hereabouts. So we went to Cypress Lawn in Colma, where a small piece of dirt is a little bit cheaper. Colma is famous for being a town with far more dead people than live ones. When San Francisco decided to move out all the graves from the city's cemeteries at the turn of the 20th century, not enough room for the living, most of them ended up in Colma. The Jewish cemetery had been dug up from what is now Dolores Park, right before the 1906 earthquake and fire. Hundreds of survivors in 1906 sought refuge in the mud of former Jewish graves. All they needed was sackcloth. They already had plenty of ashes. We checked out the Jewish cemetery in Colma, where they were reburied. Very peaceful. I felt at ease at the section reserved for my congregation near Russian Jews who have the custom of engraving elaborate stories about the buried loved ones on the gravestones. One engineer who built many bridges had pictures of many of the bridges on his very large stone, front and back. Wyatt Earp, whose wife was Jewish, is also buried in the cemetery, so interfaith couples are welcome. However, what if Estella's relatives, Catholic relatives, or our own kids want to come by to do a rosary or a Hawaiian hula mele? It would be inappropriate, could even be scandalous. I'm not stuck on Jewish dirt, so we had to find a secular plot. A large population from San Francisco ended up at Cypress Lawn, thousands, many unclaimed and anonymous. We found a good location, not far from a tree overlooking El Camino Real, and beyond the hill is Serramonte Shopping Center. So our spirits would spend the first moments of eternity presiding over traffic and eager shoppers in the largest Filipino town east of Manila. There are lots of different corpses in Cypress Lawn, a section for Chinese, one for Muslims, a whole panoply of dead people. We picked a spot that was not far from where, as our cemetery tour guide pointed out, theater people, clowns, and carnies were buried. So we knew that's the place for us. I'll be at peace contemplating fried chicken at Jollibee and a variety of vaudeville acts from my neighbors. Come visit when I'm dead, eat some fried chicken, and watch the show. Well, okay, part of this then is contemplating the deaths of friends and my family, including, as I was shocked that my family, murdered en masse in World War II. And so, and contemplating how, we are all facing this, and I go through the various last words of different members of my family, including my aunt's last words, which was, she was so, your skin a lot of times get irritated. She tore off all of her IV and everything, and tore off her gown, and was like, and I said, "You got to put it back on. You're going to die from this." And she says, "I will kill you. I will kill you." That was the last words of my beloved aunt. But before that, she had said, "I love you." So, and I'm sorry. I'm saying, I'm sorry. What, for dying? Okay. So, but then there's a lot more. Lost last words. No last words. All words are last. Gaza words are lost. Sniper words, drone words, blast words. Lost last words. I'm afraid, Daddy, I'm afraid. I'm getting bread. I'll be right back. Too many words. Not enough to eat. Last silence. Lost grief. Words that shoot. Words that wound. Lost silence. Last wails. Lost wails. Killing words. Innocent words. Guilty words. Curse words. Words of anguish to stop death words. Bombs form whole paragraphs with lost words. Prayer words hold tears. Lost tears hold hope. Life words first. Words of hope hold first words. First words hold joy. Let those words come first and forever. Almost last words. After they pulled the gurney out of the room, they left my mother to wait in the hallway before rolling her into the operating room. A triple bypass had become almost commonplace, but you still take your life in your hands anytime you go under the knife, especially if you're in your 70s. My mother had been nervous and frightened beforehand, but now she was calm, even casual and chatty, probably a result of sedatives. "I'll be all right," she said, taking my hand as she looked up from the gurney. Then I was startled by her laugh. "Ha ha, I just remembered something. Why I remembered this, I don't know, and why now? Soon after I came to America and I was still a greenhorn, though I had already met your father, I was sitting on the stoop of our apartment house in Brooklyn when a man came up to me, a neat, well-dressed man, and he said, 'Do you want me to give you a blowjob?'" She laughed some more, and her son, trying to be nonchalant, felt compelled to correct his mother. You probably heard it or remembered it wrong. Most likely he was asking, "Do you want to give me a blowjob?" Given how it's usually said. And there's a lot of comedy with death. "But I think he said it that way," she said. "My English was not yet good, so I went running up the stairs, 4 flights, to ask your father. 'Who said this to you?' he demanded, and he was ready to run downstairs and punch the man in the face." Then she giggled and grew quiet. "Here I am," she sighed, "right before getting cut open, and I remember this? Of all things, the man 60 years ago who asked me, 'Do I want a blowjob?' I could die under the knife, and this could be my last words." The nurses arrived to wheel her away, and she waved one final time, laughing goodbye, before she disappeared through the shiny metallic doors. And she had a successful operation, although she didn't wake up, and they were concerned about it. And then my aunt, my sister, who survived the war, when we went into the ICU, and she just pushed her and started yelling, "Rumka, Rumka, time to get up. We got to go to school. We got to go to school," in Polish. And she woke up. So amazing. Simple birthday gift requests. So the next birthday, May 22nd, 2024. Day 229 of the Gaza War. Somewhere later, I say I stopped counting. Some simple gifts for my birthday. Falafels, not fear in Gaza. Hope, not hate in New York. Dreams, not nightmares in Sudan. Laughter, not tears in Odessa. Humans, not masters in Florida. Lowriders, not robots down Mission Street. mutual grief and shared compassion in Haifa, light and love in Nablus, down 1 degree Celsius in Greenland, from the river to the sea, freedom, love, tranquility. From the mountain to the valley, waters flow and crops grow. Deep sleep, not COVID, in Palo Alto. Children everywhere, healthy and happy. That will keep me for another year, dear friends. Such simple gifts, I pray thee give to me. Actual birthday gifts. Bombs explode in Rafah, heads shoot off, waves of fire, rockets tearing through tents, tents flying in the air along with body parts. Bibi says, something unfortunately went tragically wrong. Trump is Netanyahu's candidate, and he's invited to a joint Congress to give a campaign speech for Trump. Biden and Bibi are maneuvering around each other, trying to corner the other. Bibi will drag out the war, if he could, until Trump comes back to office, at which time Bibi will get the green light to do as he pleases, not even any pretense of a red line. Something went tragically wrong, the slogan waves like a black flag over the dome of Congress. Holding a psychedelic rave dance next to an outdoor prison camp is also tragically wrong. The Balfour Declaration, in which one country gave away another country that did not rightfully belong to the first country, then giving the country to yet another people who hadn't really even arrived yet, while none of the non-Jewish inhabitants would be harmed, also went tragically wrong. The British Empire went tragically wrong. The American Empire, now tangling with its wayward, headstrong protege, went tragically wrong. What will all of this be like months from now? How will the grinding assault on Gaza come to an end? Will it? I'm old, so I can wait, but not too long. Next birthday, I want to see the Gaza war end with my own living eyes. Well, that didn't happen. And then, upon contemplating the final days, you enumerate your beliefs. I always wonder why people think there's an afterlife. I sympathize with those who yearn for paradise, but I can't do it. One life is all I can handle, if at all. Why ask for more? I can't imagine heaven or hell, except hell on earth in Gaza and Treblinka. There are some people I'd love to see in some imaginary hell, of course, but I'm pretty sure they'll end up only sharing dust with me and everyone else. I do find the notion of reincarnation appealing. Maybe we can get it right coming back again and again. However, I don't anticipate my soul flying off into another body. The miracle stops here. I'm not too sure about the idea of a soul either. Maybe there's a ball of consciousness that is irreducible in the center of my gut. Or maybe it's just my gut. It's a shame that whatever it is can't be passed on. It's a waste, I know. Every life is a world, according to Jewish lore, and multiple worlds disappear each day. I don't know why people are afraid of ghosts. Just say hello and leave them alone. If there's an angry ghost, ask them what the problem is and help out. Same thing you should do with the living. However, if they're vicious and mean like the living, run like hell. I do believe in original sin, just not the biblical kind. Just the fact that I'm a human means I'm capable of doing horrible things, and it's a fight not to. I do believe in evil, or maybe evil believes in me. When people want to kill and maim, even get pleasure from it, that's evil. When they are deluded into thinking that it's fine, even necessary to kill other people, that's evil. When you allow people to starve when you can feed them, that's evil. It's so hard to believe that so many Jews have become the beasts, what my father called the Nazis, and filling out papers to get restitution for our home in Lublin. I'll talk about that in a minute. No people chosen to be priestly for the sake of humankind, just miserable oppressors with a grand excuse. We suffered, and now you will too. I don't believe in God. and God is perfectly happy with that. I don't believe there's an end or goal of history. There's no inevitable classless society, no 1,000 years of blessings, no ultimate grand technological transformation, at least none assured. There's an end for certain when we destroy ourselves and when the planet gets sucked into our dying sun millions of years hence. And even that isn't a goal, just something that will happen. I don't believe in AI, although that doesn't matter. It will grab my brain no matter what. Maybe AI heralds the next stage of human evolution. The machines can gather all of our knowledge and experience and become a better us. And maybe we can continue on as machines that can survive the extreme heat and radiation and floods that we have caused. Somehow, I think that's wishful thinking. I believe in wishes. I can't believe so many friends are dead and the list keeps growing. I dreamt last night that I was walking with Paul Auster along the railroad tracks behind my house. He had a small boy with him who may have been my grandson, Eli, although I couldn't see his face. I can't believe that you're dying, I said. What am I going to do? What about the big project we're working on together? He said, I'm at peace. You'll figure it out. I woke up, saddened again over my friend's death. But in the dream, Paul may have stood in for me, and I was the one dying. I better finish this big project soon, before it's too late. And now here's one section on one of the projects working on. People's Bicentennial. July 4th, 1976. There's another anniversary coming up. I worked with Estella, who became my wife, Estella Habal, when we were both on the coordinating committee of the July 4th Coalition to mount a People's Bicentennial to counter the official 1776 celebration. A tall ship's parade on the Hudson was fine for the establishment's party, but in San Francisco, our march and rally would commemorate the colonial history of the country from the point of view of the colonized. And we would feature the current-day struggles of Native Americans, Puerto Ricans, Filipinos, African Americans, Chicanos, and others who resisted manifest destiny, slavery, Jim Crow, and empire. The coordinating committee included the Black Panther Party, the American Indian Movement, Puerto Rican Socialist Party, and others. Stella was the representative from KEP, Katipunan ng mga Demokratikang Filipinas, or Union of Democratic Filipinos, and I represented the Native American Solidarity Committee, and we worked tirelessly to pull off a massive march and rally for July 4th. Beyond the typical pains of organizing a large-scale event, there were deep fears that some kind of government operation, a COINTELPRO smear campaign, or outright assault would be launched against us. The FBI was particularly obsessed with AIM, fearful that an Indian uprising of some sort would disturb official birthday festivities, as if they were locked into an old Western and they were the 7th Cavalry. A journalist revealed that FBI agents were on the lookout for armed Lakota dog soldiers hiding in long silver milk trucks, roaming the country in search of ways to disrupt the patriotic commemorations. Once the event was located, the dog soldiers would jump out of the milk trucks in a military-style assault. It was only 3 years after the FBI's siege of AIM at Wounded Knee, so the FBI had its reasons for such deep paranoia. 2 FBI agents had been killed in June in a shootout on Pine Ridge Reservation, and the G-men were thirsty for revenge. Even though it was hard to take the dog soldiers in milk trucks conspiracy seriously, it was clear that the FBI was bearing down on the July 4th coalition. Okay, I'll do it. A few days before our event, Michael Krauss, an anti-imperialist and gay rights activist, was run over on Dolores Street while riding his bike. The accident, happening right at Dolores Park where we were to hold our rally, was suspicious. Was Michael actually murdered? Were they trying to scare us into canceling our march? In the end, it did turn out to be a terrible accident, and only that. And the Weather Underground, still underground, sent a message to his memorial. We were afraid of what seemed to be real threats, yet we tried to keep our organizing effort going smoothly. At a press conference we held at the Flood Building to present our plans, a cop arrived to announce that a bomb threat had been phoned in. The cop's message seemed patently false. He didn't even order an evacuation, and we ignored it. More serious was news from the waiters at Bruno's, an Italian restaurant on Mission Street favored by cops, especially those from the Mission Station on Valencia Street. Somehow I don't think that's the case anymore. Bruno's is probably upscale nowadays, right? Huh? Closed? Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, for years, yeah. Okay, I'm out of touch. The waiters overheard the officers conspiring or bullshitting or both, talking up how they would arrest the leaders of the July 4th coalition before the event, how they would have sharpshooters on the roof of Mission High School across from the park, how they would barrel down the hillside of Dolores Park in their motorcycles and motorized tricycles, and rampage through the crowds and arrest rallygoers for whatever they cooked up. The waiters were Nicaraguan immigrants, and they were alarmed. They told a friend of ours, I'm not mentioning his name right now until I get permission, a Nicaraguan poet, head of the city's neighborhood arts cultural initiative, you can guess if you know, and a Sandinista supporter. And he passed the intelligence from the waiters to us, the coordinating committee. In response, we went underground, sort of. For several days before the 4th, we laid low and got as clandestine as we could, hoping to escape the roundup. Stella had 3 kids, and it was impossible to stay out of sight. Kasamas, comrades, from KDP could watch the kids, but where would she go and how? It turned out that Stella was constantly being followed anyway, so it didn't look like she could slip away. She could only be on continual alert, watching who was behind her or parked in front of her Folsom Street apartment building, but they never made an attempt to nab her. I had a little experience doing clandestine meetings with the Weather Underground, and I crashed at friends' places, never staying longer than one night, and during the day working at Fitz, the print shop that we had on Valencia Street, that was part of the San Francisco Printing Cooperative, working at Fitz, keeping a wary eye out. Being with others was a form of protection, so they couldn't pick you off without anyone noticing. We were afraid but steely, fiercely determined to go ahead. About 10,000 people marched from city center to Dolores Park, with AIM at the head pounding their drums and chanting, joined by the Black Panthers, Latino groups, KDP, Puerto Rican Socialist Party, and many others. I was co-MC with Laura Rodriguez of the PSP, and we scanned the bowl of Dolores Park. Motorcycles and tricycles were positioned on the rim of the hill along Church and 20th Streets, and we could make out small figures peeping over the edge of Mission High School's roof on 18th Street. This could be it. But it wasn't. The attack never happened. Were they just bullshitting? Did the feds pull them back? We were exhilarated and exhausted, our nerves shot by the end of the rally. We had insisted on our version of U.S. history, and we made it real. Just a couple more. Well, January 20th, 2025 and after, called Eat Shit. From the inauguration of the big shit for the shithole country, it is time for scatological reflection and psychotic eruption. Welcome to the shithole. Suck some sugar, gulp down some bananas, take the coffee, take a sex tour, steal the land and the people, steal Greenland, steal Panama Canal, steal California. Canada is no more. Grab Gaza beachfront. Go ahead, it's all yours, even when you don't want it. Send the Marines. Send the mafia to run the casinos. squat on the island or the continent and take a shit the size of Texas, then complain that the service was poor, go to the hole and stick in your brains. Oh, shit for brains. And now that the shit has hit the fan, the world is scared shitless. Time to shovel shit like snow in Buffalo. Lake effect dreck. The forests of Brazil, not enough to wipe the ass of this shit machine. Go read the history of shit, l'histoire du merde, and see how language came out of the sewers and returned through engineered pipes, which is civilization. Shit is close to our hearts, so shit or get off the pot. Besides, who gives a shit? You're not the only big shit around here. The earth will be wrapped in flaming shit. Everything turns to shit and set on fire. They will call it the Great Shit Age. They will know us by our works. So, okay. I'm trying to find things I can read that are relatively short. Well, just one small thing about my father had retired from the textile business that was centered on Lower Broadway. He bought overruns and odd lots, a slightly irregular color, for example, from the textile mills in the South that he then sold to garment manufacturers from around the world. The textile business was a result of typical structural anti-Semitism, in which Jews would be allowed to flourish in places deemed too demeaning or risky for Gentiles to do business. And the risky textile trade was filled with Jewish merchants. My father would maintain warm relationships with representatives of the mills, sending out cases of whiskey every Christmas to them, even buying a car for one and helping to pay for another son's tuition for college. All friendly bribes to get the rejected goods at low prices. The mill representatives could have sold their overruns and odd lots to anyone else, so it was necessary to cultivate relationships to keep the millmen from South Carolina and other parts to stay in their good graces. It reminded me of his father's business. Did too good a job. His father's business, buying old shoes in America and refurbishing them to sell in Poland. It was a niche in which Jews could flourish, like being an old clothes ragman in England, or becoming an early movie producer in Hollywood, a risky line of work few Gentiles would consider. My father would mark up the goods and haggle with buyers from Lebanon, Morocco, Texas, Cuba, the Dominican Republic, the Philippines, and other exotic places until revolution or war blocked the market. And then black and Puerto Rican workers, according to American racial stratification, would haul bales on and off trucks. Once computerization hit, and overruns and off-colors did not happen anymore, and low-wage factories in China took off like wildfire, the whole sector collapsed, and the niche filled by Jews, already marginal, closed. But in the 1980s, the textile business was still alive, and one day my father told me he got a phone call from former business associates who asked me if my father knew what his son was doing, what he was saying, and all the anti-Zionist lectures he was giving. The reports of my appearances showed up in the Jewish newspapers, along with my name on AIPAC and ADL's blacklists. My father acted surprised and shocked, even though he knew very well what a fool I was. The caller said he really needed to do something about his son. It was a veiled threat. I felt terrible that I had put my father in the line of fire. I could account for myself, but the Zionists wanted to come after my father in order to get me, and that was how they would hurt me. I thought he would be angry with me because I wasn't a lover of earthly Zion. But instead he said, "Do you know who you're dealing with? It's the Jewish mafia." I agonized over putting him in danger, feeling so foolish that I thought he could escape the hatred directed at me. But then I felt a sliver of joy. He didn't berate me for my cracked politics, as I had feared. We had argued many times, and he knew how I felt. He was mainly concerned that I was the one in danger, that he knew I was facing a formidable, ruthless gang, and he was worried for me. Don't worry, I said, as I usually did, tossing off his concern. But I was indeed worried, and felt anguish for him as well. I'm sorry to put you through this, I said. He said, I should keep my mouth shut and be safe. It doesn't matter what you think. You can't change the world. Don't mess with the Jewish mafia. So it goes on with other great moments. I'll just end with this one. I always reflect on the murder of my family, okay? And we had a house or my grandparents had a house in Lublin, my father's parents. And for 40 years, he was trying to get it back, restitution. The Nazis took it, and then after the Nazis were defeated, the government nationalized it, confiscated it, whatever. And he wanted to get it back, never could. Had all kinds of problems, got a big stack of letters in Polish, and etc. And we decided, my brother and I and his son, that we were going to try and get the restitution. And we hired a lawyer in Poland. And I even went to Lublin and Warsaw, but to Lublin to look at the house and participate in a conference of Jews or descendants of Jews, since most of the Jews were murdered, of Jews from Lublin. And in the course of doing this, the lawyer said, don't go into the house. Don't tell anyone that this is your house. I was going to do a reading of my father's poems. My father wrote poems in Yiddish before coming to America and then after. I had them translated. They were remarkable poems, a remarkable journal of his transformation. I was going to read it in the house that he lived in. It was really going to be on the first floor, which has a children's library. But I had to cancel it, coming up with a cockamamie excuse. Very humiliating, embarrassing. But I followed the lawyer's orders. In the end, later in the book, we didn't get the house. It turned out that some group of 6 people saying that they were related, probably to our grandmother's family, we suspect, they got the house. But in the course of this research, I found out how my grandparents were murdered. A researcher from Majdanek concentration camp, which is a museum now, said, the people, they lived, this house was on Market Square, Rynek, the Market Square, the very center of medieval Lublin. And it was like a 4-story building all around it. When they take pictures of Lublin, the house is there. How did a Jew own a house like that? A block or 2 away was what's called Brama Gradska Gate, kind of a carriage road through a building. On the other side, up the hill, was the castle. Down below was the ghetto for the Jews who were slaves of the king in medieval notions. And through the Brama Gradska was the Gentile city. And so how did a Jew get on that side? And well, apparently there were wealthy Jews who lived there and bought houses. And so it was a remarkable thing. They took out the Jews from that was called the upper ghetto. And they lined up the men along the street and machined them, gunned down. And they took the women either to a forest and killed them there. I guess they were delicate. They didn't want to kill women in front of, or they took them to Majdanek. It's unclear. But to get that level of detail was remarkable. Meanwhile, my mother's parents, her father was the highest Jewish official in the Polish government before the war. And at the time of the war, he was the only Jew in the Polish government. And this is kind of remarkable because this was not a government that was friendly to Jews. They were friendly to Zionists because they wanted, go there, get out of here, go over there. And he died of a heart condition before the worst of the worst happened. So he avoided that. But my aunt and her mother, my grandmother, escaped the Warsaw Ghetto through the sewers, and then lived on in various. And I told the story in a book called "Running Through Fire," of how my aunt ended up purposely getting captured for forced labor, not slave. Forced labor is a difference. You lived forced labor, and it's. But my grandmother, she ended up. They separated in Warsaw after getting through the ghetto, and she went to Krakow, and she ended up hiding in the midst of the devil. She was a nanny for a German officer, engineering officer, not a fighting guy, but an engineer, and he took care of the kids. He was Czech, didn't speak good German. She spoke to him in Yiddish. She thought it was just bad German like his. And they managed to, so in any case. So this is one little story that kind of connects some of these. Krupnik. I was on a flight from New York, October 17th, 1989, after a book event for New York on Fire, which had just been published. The Village Voice selected it as one of the best books of the year, and it was worth flying to New York for the party. When the pilot told us over the loudspeaker that he would announce the score of the World Series game between the Giants and the A's that was soon to begin in San Francisco, we settled in our seats and took off. But after a while, the pilot casually announced that the game had been delayed because of a small earthquake, and he would let us know when it resumed. We flew on, and after a while, he hadn't reported that the game had begun again, and that was worrisome. Then he did announce that the flight was being diverted to Los Angeles because there was a power outage at the SFO control tower due to the earthquake. Those from the Bay Area were not just worried, we were alarmed, despite the casual professional tone of the pilot's announcement. We feared this was the big one, and the pilot was trying to prevent panic. And this is exactly what he was trying to do, he told me when I saw him at the hotel breakfast the next morning. As soon as the plane landed in LA, the TV screen switched on to the news, and at that moment we saw a montage of shots of the disaster. The Bay Bridge collapse, the massive fires in the marina, the pancake of the East Bay Freeway, all of the worst damage. There was a horrified silence as all the passengers sat, paralyzed, witnessing the Bay Area burst into flames and destruction on TV. When the plane taxied to the gate, passengers didn't line up and race to the door, as typical. Everyone sat stunned, unable to move, overcome with the weight of disaster on the screen. Finally, the flight attendants politely and gently told everyone to get up and leave, coming to us one by one, and we filed off the plane in eerie silence. The airline put us up in a hotel, and the next morning after breakfast, we resumed our flight, one of the first planes to land at SFO after the earthquake. On board the short flight from LA, I suddenly realized that I had forgotten something. I felt a deep hole in the pit of my stomach. I had forgotten the Grupnik. I was distraught, upset that I did such a thing, and I cursed myself. I had a bag of corned beef and pastrami and other delicacies I picked up from the local Jewish deli near my parents' house to bring home to our collective household. But when our plane was diverted and landed in LA and all the shocked passengers sat in stunned silence, I had forgotten the bag in the overhead compartment as we quietly and quickly shuffled off the plane. Only the next morning did I remember, and I was sickened by my failure. I forgot the Krupnik. My Aunt Zosha told the story of how she and my grandmother waited in their apartment building in the Warsaw Ghetto for when the Nazis came to clear the building and herd the people to the Umschlagplatz, the station, the platform for loading them onto the cattle cars, to be pushed onto the cattle cars to Treblinka's ovens. When they heard the orders from the street, they escaped through a hole in the wall that led to the Velocipede, a bicycle racetrack, behind their apartment building, and then out into the street. But before they fled, my grandmother said, "Wait, I need to get the krupnik." It was the barley soup she had been cooking when food was so scarce. Zosha thought her mother was crazy. They needed to run and not carry around a pot of barley soup. But she insisted, "We'll need to eat." And they crawled through the hall to the hole with her holding a pot of soup. As it turned out, they did need to eat. And as they hid in the streets, sleeping in an abandoned baby carriage until Zosha contacted the criminal gang that would take them through the sewers to the Aryan side of the ghetto wall. I always remembered the Krupnik story and vowed that when the time came, I would not leave the pot of soup behind. I would not fail the test. And there it was, a moment of shock and panic, and I left the Krupnik behind. I told Estella that the meat had gone bad, which was no doubt true, but I didn't confess that I had left it behind in a panic. I berated myself, and I was ashamed of my failure. No one should trust me to flee the Nazis. I didn't have the presence of mind to remember the basics, and I certainly couldn't bargain as Zosha did with criminals to lead her and her mother through the sewers to the other side. I might as well trudge my ugly old ass to the Umschlagplatz right now. All right. Well, I didn't get there. Thank you. And thank you, Burden and Beckett. This is a great institution, and there's a nonprofit, whatever. I've done readings here. I read from Trace Pesach with a jazz band, and it's somewhere on the website there, and it was great to have that kind of backup. But this is a wonderful place, and it's part of the whole scene of what makes San Francisco a great place. All right, thank you. I don't need help. I don't need great stuff. Wait a minute. Yeah, that's all right. I just need to load up.
Very good. Yesterday was my birthday and it was great to finally Gloria, my daughter, my sister came down and do like a city walk and we were like, we are so blessed and the world is so messed up. It's paradox. Like, what is Christmas?
I used to go up to your partner, Mona, as a friend who lived in Trinidad.
We are, but that,
Built his house for
that
my
is
trip.
in fact, look at us. But now we're I know, that's why I asked.
Get back.
Really? Seriously?
It's a great place, but you've been here before, right? This is our first time. You got through that hospital.
Yes.
As well as you did. They took good care of you.
So I have a friend on the other side of, Glen Park. His friend Judy, your first friend Judy, lives on this side. She's a guy.
So you're the granddaughter for Jerry? And are you also a poet?
Not by trade.
But you do write?
Sometimes. Not as much as I'd like to hear.
Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean, not
No, it's interesting.
more writes poetry.
Even though I'm on the far edge of kind of central old services on a building from 19. You guys should visit a building from 1900 and walk by College. I think it was a pancake, like the mission downtown, the whole central city is flat. I don't know if you know this guy Steve Solda, but he's a maniac. I'm not related to him. I know electric bike, they can do chicken wheels with assist.
Why not? That was only yesterday. Studying with Jerry and this group of 4 other women. She's here at Bottom Park because one of the members who lives in Arcadia was at Stanford. And they had an opening for another person, so you joined the Sabrina Mushroom too.
David is like physical with his creative work already. Like I remember there's a period where I had like thinking running and doing like someone just said it was a bad joke about houses.
We got married 3 weeks after this.
I've only
I was
played
working in
stuff
the city
like
and he was working at the Lord's looking labs. So that was a little bit of a challenge. We separated. I was surprised in his story because I thought the airport was closed for 2 days.
Well, I know you couldn't take planes for a while. Yeah, that's true. I was kind of surprised you could come in.
Maybe they just to collect civil rights and do certain runways. We're still inspecting for environmental.
Well, I still remember we had one of those railroad shots. And because the mission of that area is railroad, there was no damage. But a lot of people were turned off to and so nobody could cook. And I remember walking up to the Castro, there was one cafe or restaurant that hadn't turned off its gas, and they were doing a normal business for the next day because so many people.
I'm so sick of those things with the 80-year-old see something about the 80-year-old who takes a risk of people in a lot of those days. Not even every day.
I don't remember exactly what was the first 3, 4, 7 in Judah. And then it was the next day we actually trekked through to get a ferry.
I remember walking over and we'd see back to San Diego, it took half an hour to go back. But I remember the parade of people in the street, and you could see the smoke come up out of the marina where some of the buildings were.
That was pretty funny. The long way around, but it's now ready for you.
And it's not real well enough. Sorry.
Did you find any gems?
Yes. This guy, really I need to come back on a mission only to browse. Yeah, I'm not putting a lot of gems here. It's funny, I wouldn't say physical now, but I'd be trying to like do a reading that to not scan the titles on the shelves was so hard. And sometimes somebody will be talking to me, they'll be standing in front of a bookshelf and like, how can I not scan the titles? Because I'm like inches, minutes away from finding that one book. And sometimes I remind myself, I just read some more of the books at home. You don't need a new book, you need to read the books you have. actually biked to a cafe today with a couple of books. I was like, okay, my laptop will stay home and I'll go out and I'll just read the books. And it was great.
That's how I am with fabric stores.
Which fabric stores do you go to?
Well,
Do you get leftovers from Desiree?
okay,
So
I
puts
do
out
have,
this-
yes, I have some from her. I now am working on the People Quilt, which is a collective effort in Sonoma County.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And with Indivisible or is that?
No, it's a friend of mine who started it, and they just doing word of mouth. But it's 30
Different
squares.
locations.
It's kind of like the days. They're piecing together for the July 4th celebration. It's interesting to hear the story of it.
Well, it's a miracle that they got together so quickly.
Yeah.
But you know the Quilted Angels?
Oh, it's funny because like I know the antique stores, but I don't. I know Main Street. I don't know the quilting store.
Quilted Angel is behind the Mexico.
Is that near the 19-cent price sign?
No, do you know the pizza place with the 50-star lady named
What a
Pizza?
fire will do.
On the main street, it's kind of there.
Yeah, order books. Yeah, okay. And frankly, I own a bunch of Liberty of London and other lovely fabrics, and I don't really sew. I made a quilt or two when I
I
was
mean, the
younger.
only
Not
way
very
you're
well.
gonna
I
be
made
able to do
masks
that is
during
to
the
have a
pandemic.
duplicate
I was in an
someplace else.
Auntie Sewing's fund. I knew I would have
Very
recruited you.
few.
Or I did
Of
know.
course, it would have been a great idea,
And,
but
Monday
now.
morning quarterbacking. It's one of the things I was talking to this guy about what retirement could mean. I'm glad things have gone so well, and I could sew.
I'm sure you're glad it is the end of the story.
Because I've done so much work travel that now I just hate travel, and I feel like I need to rediscover pleasure travel.
That sounds really good. But yet,
Yeah, well, it's great to see a good
everybody
turnout like
has
this.
to write things, right?
That's okay. Well, I talk about input travel versus output travel. Like when you're on book tour or lecture circuit or whatever, like you're just like you feel like you come home knowing less than you left because you've just you've seen hotel rooms, airports, lecture halls, whatever. And you've listened to yourself talk. Whereas input travel, you have adventures and ideas, and like the flow and the problem. It's not even the events, it's the travel and just getting missed meals and bad meals and jet lag and stress and falling short on sleep.
I walked with facilitated by Rabbi Caroline and I could stand, I could watch the wine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, boy, and you can sit for a while.
I can sit, that's the big social slot.
She was a master sewer.
Really? One of my mom's generation, like my mom could make like a coat with lining and stuff.
Yeah, well, good to see you again, and yeah, I look
And it
forward
was
to
just so
May.
normal for women, non-rich women to
And that
sew
is
their own clothes. I'm
China
made
said that
dresses.
we'd be welcome to come back.
It's just super normal to do it. She's also very handy. Dana takes after
Yeah,
her.
where are you going?
I actually, when I'm doing sewing things, I get really puzzled by like how this two-dimensional
And
thing
you're
will
driving.
become the conform to the three-dimensional shape. Like where do the
So how are
darts
you
go?
getting up
How do
there?
these fit?
Train?
Yeah, flats. Yes. Good. Actually, if May Day is a big
From.
like action day. If you guys
That
know
probably
what's
would be a
going on
nice
in
way to go,
Pennsylvania, maybe I'll
actually.
touch base with you about that. If there's protest, because I think there'll be a no King's
Yeah,
Down
much
protest.
better than driving.
Yeah, I'm on the list with the Second Postcards on the Tuesday, so we'll
Yeah.
know about it, yeah.
Great.
I didn't see
Phil,
anything yet.
this is Phil.
Yeah, Jerry's poetry writing class.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And you live in El Cerrito, did I hear you say?
Well, we used to live in El Cerrito. Julia, our daughter, lives in El Cerrito. We live in Petaluma.
I see. No, well, we live in Berkeley,
Okay.
not that far
Not
from
far
El
from El
Cerrito.
Cerrito.
Yeah.
And Rebecca's gonna be reading in Petaluma on Phil's birthday, May 1st.
So it's for Phil's birthday.
What are you reading?
Coming up.
Oh, I have a new book out. But I'll check in because it's also Copperfield Books, like it's their 45th anniversary or something. So I'll figure out what do they want. And I do have some kind of one of first chapter of the book takes place on the Marin Sonoma border, so it's topical.
Is it fiction?
Nope, I don't do that.
You don't do fiction?
Nope.
Investigative reporting or what?
I'm an essayist.
I think you've written at least one children's book, though, right?
Two.
Yeah, two.
Yeah. 2 children's books, 3 atlases.
How many atlases do we need?
The way the world keeps changing,
You know,
as Jerry's been pointing
my
out,
parents
we
were,
need more.
Different
I
perspective.
think my dad might have already been it was 1976 was a really weird year. Like my parents were not
We'll make our way to the
parenting
park.
by that time, and
Yes,
I
have a
didn't.
good trip back. We'll see you in May. Yeah, good to see you.
And like it was happening, yeah. And then 3 years later, people had these big pieces of fabric. It was like, what do you do with however many miles of
Jerry,
fabric? Yeah, there used to be all this fabric
you have a ride?
I'm kind of sad I didn't see it.
There's gonna be an exhibit, my friend is the curator at the Snow County Museum, and this is
Well,
the
we can
50th
put some
anniversary.
pictures.
So they're doing a thing.
Wherever we go.
But I heard that
Yes.
when they left, when they took it down, the farmers that had it passed
You
away.
wanna come with us?
Property owners have
Oh, okay,
fabric.
all right,
Yeah.
very good.
They did, but
Well, great to see you.
maybe I'll know more about it by the time I see
I
you.
was thinking that maybe we should just do dinner
Yeah, I
Saturday,
just wish I'd seen
maybe
you
whenever
myself.
you're ready.
Oh,
And then,
I haven't thought about that in forever.
I was thinking about when you said on the Sonoma Marin County line, because that's kind of where it came
makes
out.
things easy.
Yeah, well, there was a land back in the first chapter of the book. You guys would
So yeah, just let me know when.
The first chapter of the book takes place with this. There it is again.
Okay.
The Federated Tribe of Great Rancheria got title to a 400-acre former ranch property just on the south side of the San Antonio Creek, an estuary that's the border between the 2 counties. It's a beautiful wild piece of land. So I was there for the day that happened, and that's the first chapter.
Yeah, you think about it.
Established my local ranch.
I'm so looking forward to it.
Amazing how that happens. Congratulate me also. He's my father's first cousin. It took us, we didn't figure that out until I married him. There's a whole story of babies.
Okay,
And he's writing about Humboldt, and part of what I'm writing about takes place on the Revolution.
yeah, that's good.
We can rash it to the youth.
I can drive you someplace too if you want, Jerry. I have a car on the street, but in this guy doesn't.
Okay. Should I bring the call?
Okay, here's this and this.
Yes.
Jerry, do you wanna come with us, or you'll take it?
You got it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, I should settle up with you on some books and keep a copy for the stuff. I sold at least 2,
So is she on the 30th Street,
I can
over
find
on the other
that out.
side of Grand Park, across the street is amongst.
Yeah, so, cool, so can I pay you for 3? Well, I think I should only
If you
keep
think
1
you
in
know the way
stock.
there, well, my phone will know it.
But I'll give you a check.
Yeah, I have a friend who actually lives at church.
I think I should just keep
Church crosses 30th, so that she's up
You're
north
$25 a piece, and then I'll treat you for $30 a piece. So that's $140 if you pay your 60% of the before each time. That's kind of a standard. So that would be 70 plus 14, 80.
I need to come back to this
Cool.
bookstore
Okay,
when
so I'll make sure I
the
got
stacks
two, and then I'll
are
send
like
you
not shoved aside.
one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Jerry, I bought your book through Empty Bowl. I ordered 7 copies and gave them to all my siblings for Christmas.
My
So now they spread over.
Which one, the new?
First time
Oh, Tree Book or
The
the?
Wave Shop.
Okay, yeah.
Oh,
I love the way you told the story. And boy, the sex scandals of the bohemians of the 20s and 30s.
stroke.
Yeah, that was great about the evil. Talking. What's the language called?
Ego.
It is called.
Yes.
So today being 4/9/26.
Oh, really?
More copies.
Yeah.
That.
It's funny because I've read it, but I need to go back and think more about high schools. And it's interesting that the way people gradually move towards this sort of systemic thinking rather than isolated specimens.
Six. Okay, so here's that. Now let me see what, I want to know. I don't want to hear that. One. So let's see how it goes. Did you pick anything up?
Because then there's
I think you brought 5, didn't you? I didn't count.
Jane Goodall or, and it's interesting. I read something that described how like they get this very, like you've been a professor for 4 years and suddenly the way you've been somebody's telling you the way you've been teaching this time where you were not teaching. I have a friend who did a geology undergraduate degree and he's old enough, he's like,
So,
continental drift was like this radical new theory a lot of people said.
Yes.
You brought 4. Okay, great.
And the book, the pink book, as I call it, talks about Jim Goodall, Richard
Yeah.
Carson, Lynn Margulis, Suzanne Sarandon, but not to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Where is it?
She's really great. She's amazing. She's a book.
Yeah, no, it's a cool
Yeah,
book.
no, she has a sequel to Finding the Mother Tree, so she did a reading of point-based books.
I've got a new one that you're gonna really like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's all reading books on adventures. I watched Marcus. We're talking to them. It's really very hilarious.
All right, well, you both, you
Well,
go.
she has a lot. I just assumed she had you.
Thank you.
God, how do I not remember?
And you've got some books. You did? How'd you do that? There are no books in here.
People have the book.
Please.
The generations continue. Yes.
Okay. So we got $3 there.
Good to see you, Sandy. Great to see you.
Copy. It looks a little shabby for a new copy.
You got a
Stuff,
left
we were
here.
just not last year over there on the shelf.
Oh, yeah. You want me to get it? You know which one was yours? I think you were the middle one. So far left.
When you get a bag, you can get a bag without any
Did my
money.
thesis on this guy.
No big deal.
And
So, yeah, this is just the so $15.
I know. It's funny because there's like nothing on those guys when I did my thesis. Well, that's all around.
Yes.
How about the books? And
All right, well, have a good ride back home.
Yes, we're
You
gonna
will,
go
you
over
will
right
indeed.
now, so I
I'll see you in 10
will
years.
get to-
That's the last card you
You're
get
out.
here.
You can make it more frequent.
Good
We
night,
got a few
Eric.
other exciting- Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye, see you, Steve.
All
All right, so we did some business activities.
You must suddenly have a surprise to me.
So we all show all three copies
Usual,
of
I
the.
private work, hang out with friends, I write.
Oh, great, we sold 5 bodies of work. That's pretty good.
I can't complain.
Bodies of
but,
work, yeah,
you know,
we sold it for like 16 or something like that, I forget exactly.
which is when you're
Bodies.
abundance and you're lucky to have that problem. Problems everyone else has.
This says we have 4 on it, you only see 2.
Are you
There might
like
be 2
sneaking
laying around.
around
It
doing
says we
some
sold 3. Yeah.
secret church oil stuff, or are you really down?
Okay, well, let's just look and see if
What you
there's a
writing?
couple
I'm
things.
writing a book about John Collier.
I mean, I don't mind keeping them in stock, so I can go ahead and pay for them, but assume I'm gonna find them.
You know, I was sort of
And then I'll have
looking
them in
into the
stock.
world of what was kind
Looks
of-
like here's 2 more.
Oh, you see? Okay.
Oh, they look
But
so.
what, yeah,
the-
they didn't fit, or they were too, it was too thick.
Okay.
But
So
why don't I
so there's
buy
4.
those anyway and keep those for stock?
Okay, good deal.
All right.
Less to carry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in your home.
A little bit of
Terrific,
that.
terrific phone.
You know, another New Mexico person was at New Mexico.
Okay, so therefore,
Various social circles there.
we sold 4, we're keeping 2, so that's 6.
Sharing.
And they bring up at $18 a piece.
I think I need to start
So are you
stuff.
60 over
Good to see
$18?
you.
That work for you?
You too.
I mean,
Don't let us
6
forget
times
this.
equal.
I will.
Anyway, 60%.
Oh, you're his right,
I
right?
am.
So,
Yeah.
It was great seeing
$18.
you,
It was likewise.
and we'll see you soon.
Yes, may have gone before.
Yeah.
28 times 26.
Nice to run into you.
Well, that would be 54 plus. Should be
Just
64.
make windshield
But
wiper
that would be
motions, kick me
calculated.
briskly in the shins and wake me
Here,
up. It's
I'll
really
be
funny.
telephone. I'll call somebody.
I work in Martien. There's this woman named Cindy or Cynthia. She is like really into you. And so she tells me all about your whereabouts, because once she was talking about
Which
you in the
one is
studio,
the
and I mentioned the
Oh,
There
river.
it
has
is.
it.
Okay.
And she's like, oh my God, and she said that she saw you and I just walked up and said,
Equals 64.
like you look familiar or something. I wonder if you get that a lot in public places.
I had a really funny thing walking to David's house once where this woman just looked at me in astonishment. She said, "This is the most amazing thing. You look just like this writer, Rebecca Solomon." And I was like, there's a reason for that.
It's funny because I had a friend who was an identical twin.
Oh
And
my
people
God.
would walk up here and say, you know,
No,
get
no, I always
confused
bring
with who
others.
she was.
Yes. Well, you just hope your identical twin behaves well or gets a really different
The
haircut.
Ricketts book.
Those are the 2 choices. My friend, one of my
So
good
let's
friends
do
wrote a
those 2.
beautiful book about identical twins and
I'd love to get some more copies of that.
one of them got in a lot of trouble with her gays and had to become an unaccompanied child refugee.
Yeah.
And then because they were identical, his brother had to go too because the gangs were just after, you know, the gangs couldn't tell the difference. And so they both came and ended up in Oakland, and she worked suburban at the newcomer high school or did. And she wrote this
Okay, well,
beautiful
if you
novel
give us,
book
package
about
of,
them called
say, 3
The
more,
Faraway
7 million,
Brothers.
send you a check.
But yeah, twinhood is dangerous.
Okay, so
Sounds
that
like
book is
amazing.
called.
Identical
Great Shot.
twinhood.
Yeah, that is, it is.
That sounds familiar. I'm so glad that copy showed
Okay,
up.
so we're all good to head over.
Yes. 16.
Sherry, I'll see you soon. Congrats on the reading. Very nice.
It's 9:30 now, so the next one comes in 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, well, great to see you again.
You all were getting my car and I came to bar.
No, no, it's
But
just
Marty's
like
so
this
far
literally
along.
like
I
half
know
a block
it
away.
is.
Yeah, right?
Once she joined me, it's like, yeah, I probably should have done it. I did a lot of walking, transit walking
Oh,
yesterday.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
29
All right,
for those.
bye both of you guys.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
See you last.
Yeah.
Two, two, four, 94.20. Now there was a 3rd book. I sold that too.
Was there?
Yeah.
Oh, you did have a 3rd.
I did. I sold
Yeah,
that. What was
where'd you
that?
get that?
I don't know. I thought they came in the same package.
Did it?
I'm pretty sure.
Huh.
What was it called?
Yeah, good question.
Good question. Sure was. I could look Well, I got it.
Yeah.
There it is. That's it.
It was
No, that's
also
not it. Here it is. $18.
18.
Okay, so that's 1080. So plus 1080. We're getting to nice round numbers. $105 right on the nose. And so you are still Jerry after all this time.
Yeah.
Sorry it took so long. $105.
And I have a few enough books I can actually take care of.
There you go.
Always a good sign.
Right?
How to get rid of the product.
Yeah. Books. Those are books.
Yeah, traveling without a car. I would like
Yeah.
shipping books at no time. So it's good like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is still August, April, and
For a few more hours.
yeah. Okay, thanks. All right, cousins reunited here, or united for the first time or something?
Oh no, we've known each other for about 8 years.
Oh.
But we didn't know we were related until that
Oh.
remarkable coincidence
Okay.
happened.
So as cousins, you just met.
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
first time.
No,
There you go.
he's my father's first cousin.
Yeah.
His dad was my grandmother's younger brother.
Yeah.
So, in case you were interested, you don't have
Well,
to.
I don't think I'm gonna track that, but that's
Yeah,
all
I
right.
just,
You don't have to.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and look, we have everything in common. Amazing. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Environmental writer people.
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, it was really a pleasure. Thanks,
Thank
Jared.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Rebecca, nice to see you.
I'm gonna come back and just browse.
Yeah, do that.
You got a few
Sign some
things
books
to look
for me.
at.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.
We'll see you. Have a good night.
Okay.
Test.